And hello, this is, well, I guess a pop up interview, which will end up becoming an episode of Hour of the Wolf, broadcast on WBAI on Mondays at 9 p.m. But you can also get it streamed anywhere by going to WBAI.org and click on the magic words listen. And I got an email from an old friend and wonderful writer by the name of Patrick O'Leary. And say hi, Patrick. No, that's not hi, Patrick, but it'll do fine. And yeah, I know. I, I wanted to do the George Burns kind of, good night, Gracie kind of. Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, Patrick does not at this moment have a camera, and neither do I. But I'm using my phone as a camera, something that we can set Patrick up for future interviews, and there will be future interviews. How many times have you been on either Hour of the Wolf or at one of our Nersif readings? Hmm. I would say I would say at least 3. And we've known each other since before your first novel came out, I believe. That might be the case, yeah. Um, for some rea Yeah, the first thing I read was The Gift, but that's the book that was published second, but I think you wrote that first? Whoa. Ri Well, yeah, and let that be a lesson to all the aspiring writers out there, which is 3 words: stick with it. Do not give up on the stuff you have in that trunk. Uh, After it's made the rounds, give it 5 years and send it out again. All the editors have probably shuffled anyway. That Yeah, yeah, no, I'm yeah, yes, it certainly does. I work as an audio post production person and occasional host. Well, I host Lightspeed for Adamant Press, which is John Joseph Adams' press name at this point. He puts out Nightmare Magazine, Fantasy Magazine, and the one I host is Lightspeed. And he also does a podcast for or at least produces one for Wired magazine. And there are other very, very good magazines that do podcasts, such as Clark's World and so forth. But and why am I mentioning all of this? Um, don't know. But at any rate, yeah. Oh yes, but yeah. My point is that especially John, who used to be the first reader, the slush pile reader at the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, uh, he would read. I don't know how he did it. He would read the stories and reject them, but he read them. Very quickly, and he passed a lot on to Gordon Van Gelder, the editor at the time. It's now Cherie Renee Thomas. But boy, they were fast in sending things back to people. and they still are. But the point is that none of the editors of that time, including Gordon Van Gelder, who is now the owner and not the editor of those magazines, all the editors have changed. So wait 5 years, and the likelihood is there's a new editor, and therefore, and I actually asked Gordon about this. Yes, technically, it's a fresh submission because it's new eyes. So, yes, it is. Yeah. Well, I think there are writers who cheat doing that. What they do is they find a section of a novel that they think will, totally stand on its own, and then they will send, a novella length or short story length piece out to their agent or to a publisher, and if it catches, if it hooks, they can say, "Aha, gotcha. Listen, this is really a novel. Wouldn't you like to get the whole novel, huh?" And I know that worked for at least one today very major writer who, and I won't say who. If that person wishes to say so, they will. They'll tell it. It's up to them to tell that story. It's not up to me. But where did your first book get hooked out of the slush pile? Oh, I know I was mentioning all that stuff before because I was a first reader for Jim Bain. Yes, Jim Bain. Jim Bain at Galaxy Magazine. This is before Bain Books began. Although I have no doubt that Jim was already talking with Tom Doherty, who people don't realize funded Bain Books and launched it. People think, oh, Tor, but no, Tom Doherty has done a whole lot more than Tor Books. He's an amazing, yeah, yeah. You go into what was his office at the Flatiron Building, which is not. Is that all? My God, that's nothing. 106 $167 million for one of New York's most iconic building. It's so iconic that Woody Allen would start a movie with a picture of the Flatiron Building. No, Woolworth Tower. Woolworth Tower. Yes, no, yes, and also the, home for Fleischer Animation. So, Betty Boop, Popeye, Gulliver's Travels, Fleischer, Dave Dave and Max Fleischer. This was their company. They had maybe 5 or 6 animators on staff. They weren't draftsmen like you had at Disney. They were just wonderful, and they would throw in all kinds of bizarre humor. There is a Betty I'm sorry to say that there's a Betty Boop musical opening on Broadway this year. No! There there are there are 3 Bettys. There were there well, I'm such a Betty Boop fan, but There's the very late Betty Boops that are just with the dog and a little boy, and they are squeaky clean and no plot. Then a little before that, there was this character Gramps, and he was an inventor. He was a Rube Goldberg type, and he could do most anything. And before that, we're pre-code. Now when we're oh, Betty was topless in at least 3 or 4 cartoons. Oh, you see, now when we're talking the real Betty Boop, with the and when I say topless, it would be like she gets scared and all of a sudden, all of her clothes would bunch up for less than a second and reappear magically. And so that's the thing, yes, and there are any number of documentaries, one of which is hosted by Steve Allen, that cover all this. But the real Betty Boop, when the intro song, "Made of pen and ink," da 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 da, that's Rudy Valley singing, and they had Cab Calloway and Louis Armstrong, and they invented rotoscoping. For those people who know what you do in cinema, you take a picture. Exactly, and they would take a picture, they would, yes, yes, but the short version, the short version. No, that is the same process. Yeah, oh, there are books about this. I recommend Leonard Maltin, but yeah, and he's written books about this kind of thing. But at any rate, to me, that's the real Betty, where Helen Kane, the who was a huge star, she was the original Betty. Betty was based on her looks, it was her voice, and then she wanted too much money because she became a huge star. So they substituted her with Mae Questel, and the yeah, exactly. Exactly. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, it was that kind of thing, and there was a 3-year court case, and believe it or not, she lost because they were using an imitation, a great imitation of her voice. They were using the same picture that they had rotoscoped of her, so to all intents and purposes, it was her, but the judge apparently just loved having flappers in his courtroom every day. And he kept the trial going and going and going. And after all, then they took like a long, long recess, and the judge came back. In the meantime, the Fleischers did a famous photo, publicity picture of all these different women dressed up as the flapper Betty Boop surrounding the Flatiron Building. That's where we began. The Flatiron Building. It's a great photograph with the Fleischers at the head and all these Bettys behind them saying, "You see, she's not unique." Boy, the judge wouldn't eat today, they wouldn't even hear the case, they just find in favor of Helen Kane, and then the Fleischers would have had to pay her, but they didn't. They got Mae Questel, who was also Olive Oyl, and basically most of their female characters, except for the guys in falsetto. Well, yeah, let's get down to brass tacks. Well, I wanted to start with the chat and warm us up for on air. And we have done that at this point. And we mentioned one book that was your first, but was actually your second, and that was The Gift, which I loved. Oh my God, I loved that book. Uh, yeah, I'll tell you more. The more I have to tell you is I have to reread it. Yeah, same here. And while I remember a lot about it, I don't think I could say anything really intelligent about it. Yeah, so that's The Gift by Patrick O'Leary, and we should say that is O apostrophe Leary for those people who are listening to this on the radio. There are a lot of people also. This is a pop up. We are doing this live on YouTube, but we have told nobody. We just appeared, and even then, we have one viewer. Yeah, they don't, but, thank you, viewer. Let me see here. Is there a way? And I should tell the viewer that if you have comments to make, you can make them in the comment box, and we will see it and either ignore it or acknowledge it. And we may not get to it immediately. We'd get to it a little later. Uh, no, no. That sounds like it's software or something at your end. And each time you came back on and I hadn't realized you were off because I 'cause I thought nonstop. Yeah, well, on YouTube, where we are showing the video, beg pardon, and on my computer, where the master is being recorded, the it's one file. So all is good. Uh, but all's better when I shut up and you start talking. Is yeah, it seems to me, well, you mentioned that we had you on with Elia Don Johnson, or was that live? Ah, yeah, and we did a, NYRSIF, a virtual event like this, but as a New York Review of Science Fiction readings with Elia, maybe about a year ago, and she actually sang. She's in Mexico now. Ooh, I will have to be in touch with her. That. Well, yeah, well, we'll find out about it, and we'll have her back on. So, what was your first published book? Mhm. I remember that. Right. Yeah. You can't, but you can say, "Gee, if you've read this particular book, you might like that book." If you like Jonathan Carroll, and I think you're in a similar category to him with the surrealism, and then you realize it was less realistic than you thought. Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, weird is what so much good speculative fiction is all about, isn't it? Okay, right. Yes, Abram, actually. Yeah, hold on. I got a message from a viewer who says that they cannot hear you. So let me, Barbara, could you do me a favor? Could you go to YouTube and see that we're live? Sounds okay in my headphones. Yeah. Well, not I mean, we're not broadcasting. So we're live on YouTube. Okay. And are you there, Barbara, in the space? Okay. So Patrick, say something for a minute. No, Barbara cannot hear you either. Okay. Okay. Barbara says that you are audible, but only very distantly. Yeah, there could be some kind of lag, which happens often. I can hear from here that when I talk, it's like my voice comes out about, I'd say, 20 seconds after I say it. So let's hold on because what I just said is only now coming through. Okay. Let's wait until after we hear it say okay. No, no, let's wait. Let's wait. Oh no, it's not 20 seconds. It's like a minute. Okay, yeah, go ahead and do more testing. Okay, and that should be enough. We'll hear you or not, and Barbara will go. Not happening, is it? Yeah, it's there extremely faint. Well, you see, I can hear you fine, so I don't know. I'm adding another channel for you.
Is it possible that I'm no? Okay. Man, I don't know what could it be. I do not know. Let's collapse this. No, let's not collapse that.
Hold on. Okay, talk a little more, Patrick.
Testing 1, 2, 3. This is Patrick O'Leary on live.
Okay,
Hello,
we're
hello.
giving it a few seconds.
No, you're waiting to hear.
Yeah,
I see.
there's lag, very long lag.
Mhm.
Ah, now we have you.
Oh, good.
Okay, the
Hey,
problem.
thank you, Robert.
Yes, thank you very much, Robert. Okay. And
Doggone it.
he just sent a friendly I Ching hexagram. So we are very grateful.
We are
So
grateful. We dedicate this broadcast to the great
Robert
Honorable Philip
Goodman.
K. Dick and Robert Goodman.
Yes, yes. Okay. So guess what? Hey, all that talking that we did was fun
It was fun.
and unheard. So we start from the beginning now.
You tell me. You're the leader.
Okay, so um I'm simply, gee, I wonder if, hold on, give me a moment here. If I can do that. Patrick, talk again.
Hello, this is Patrick O'Leary coming to you from a mild winter day in Michigan.
That's enough. Hold on. Yeah, Barbara went away, so we can't hear either of us. Patrick, talk again.
Hello, this is Patrick.
Okay, good.
You sound great.
Yeah, yeah. It's just there was another window that had to be open. And what it is that because we have two still pictures of you, each picture has its own audio.
Mm-hmm.
And I was running the audio for the wrong picture. When I added it to the other picture, then you became audible.
Yeah, if I had a dime for every time I've done that.
Yeah. It's actually easier sometimes to do this anonymously. So we're going to start this again. And we're going to do a 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to say hello, everybody. It is March 26th, and it's later than we think. It's 3:42 in the afternoon. Which is pretty good because we were going to start at 1. Then we ended up trying at 2, but for various reasons, we've had technical issues. But with us is Patrick O'Leary, who has always been one of my favorite people and one of my favorite writers. And we'll call this a pop-up interview because we did not announce it. We did not promote it. However, it will live on YouTube and also copy it to Facebook. And sooner or later, we will cut down a censored version to fucking WBAI. I had to make sure there was something to say.
I'm going to put the clapper in there for the editor.
Yeah, right. I mean, the old one that we
listen. The more my pain medication wears off, the more I'm going to swear. I'm just warning you.
Okay, I almost did a spit take.
Sorry, dude. No, this is fun. I get to talk to my compadre in the science fiction community, which I haven't done an awful lot in the last several years.
Yeah, well, there was a time that you were working for either an advertising agency or Chevrolet. I don't recall
Well,
which.
both actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but Chevrolet was your main client.
Yes, and I'd get into New York or the major cities, and I'd be able to see friends from conventions and stuff. But
yeah, and we saw you more frequently at conventions and at readings and things like that, and we see a lot of people who live here.
Mm-hmm.
So you were a local friend, and then you switched jobs. You became an Apple genius.
I got I switched jobs. That's another way to look at it. Yeah,
you did switch jobs. Yeah,
it was 2008. A lot of people switched jobs back in 2008, so you can read between the lines. And I ended up selling retail Apple, which is very cool, actually. And I met some lovely people, and people were so much fun. I'm not a extrovert at all, so I had to pretend to be one to work in the Apple store when you got 50 people around you.
Yeah,
I
although I gotta say, being the kind of person who loves the stage, I'm a good retailer.
Oh, I bet you would be. I bet you would be. I have a ham in me too. So if I have to present a new iMovie or something like that, that was fun. But
Yeah.
those days are gone. I'm retired now. I just keeping my self alive one day at a time.
Now, does retired mean that you're writing more?
I write when I want to. I wrote a chapter of a new novel that I didn't know was a new novel until I wrote this chapter a night ago. Yeah, I'm constantly doing that. And if you know my work, that makes sense because you'll go from Acapulco to, New York to the moon in 3 pages.
Yeah.
So my interests are varied and my writing is unschedulable. I have no idea when it's going to happen. So
Okay. So in order, then, um, ah, you see, now I've got the gift stuck in my head.
that's all right. We're
So in
buds. We
order,
don't care about
the,
this.
the first book again was
A book that Ellen Datlow, I'm going to confuse the whole world. She called it The Third Door. But the actual title of my first novel
right.
was
She did.
The Whole World Lies Waiting Behind Door Number 3.
Door number 3.
Yeah.
Eh,
It was called
and
Door Number 3 and about time travel and stuff. And then I did a couple of years later, I did The Gift, which was nominated for the World Fantasy Award.
right.
And that was I was great honor to meet people there and to see that. And then I wrote The Impossible Bird at the turn of the century.
Another wonderful surrealist, very very modern for its time with that. Uh,
Neural net.
yeah, neural nets realism.
Yeah,
How's that?
that's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're trying to
and
coin.
that just happened. Just what in the last 2 weeks, our world has just went like a tectonic plate shift, and I'm just starting to get it. The more I explore the new AIs and stuff. But
Yeah. Although they still haven't tamed them.
no, they
Uh,
haven't
but,
tamed it. It's
but
still
but but it will happen.
it will happen, and it's alarming and fascinating to me at the same time. But and my novel, The Impossible Bird, posits an alien invasion that sort of embodies itself as hummingbirds, and they are offended by the idea of death. So they're going to do everybody on Earth a big
Well, so
favor.
am I.
Well, who isn't? But they're going to do everybody on Earth a big favor, and that is to take away death, or put it another way, to create another afterlife.
Ah, okay, yeah, that's better because take away death would offend Terry Pratchett fans.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure I get the reference, dude. Sorry, but
Oh well, then you haven't read.
I have not.
Ah,
I
you.
know this is like
My
libraries are full of stuff I
my
haven't
my
read.
congratulations because
It's
you
ahead of
have
me.
you have a treat ahead of you.
I love that when it happens. I find a book that someone's really passionate about.
If you go in order with The Color of Magic and The Light Fantastic, those are okay, but not his best. But
Uh-huh.
starting with about his third book, and he has all these different series. You can start with Guards. There are a few you can start with. Uh,
If and when I do, you give me that list.
I will. I
I know
will.
you will. Yeah.
Because these are surreal and hilarious. If you enjoy something like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you will love Terry Pratchett.
Cool. And it's
That's
interesting that we should bring him up as when we're talking about humorous authors and surreal authors. But we're in the same neighborhood.
yeah. Yeah, with
Uh,
the difference being that Pratchett writes fantasy,
he writes
out and
fantasy.
out fantasy,
Yeah.
and you write
What are
science
you?
fiction.
Well, science fiction, I guess, is what I'd call it. But people have called it lots of different things.
Yeah.
But I'm
And then
delighted that they call it at all. It's
yeah.
nice to have you here. Enjoy the
And
book.
and the fourth book.
Yeah, the fourth book just came out last year, right in the middle of all this, as everything seemed to be coming to spring. My new novel is called 51, and it's a story of the actual real history behind all the rumors that we're privy to, whether it's alien invasion, crash UFOs, all those American secrets that have been part of our growing up, the American mythology of UFOs. And what's really going on is something much stranger and weirder. And 51 tells you by eyewitnesses what's actually going on.
Yeah, which I recommend also with to read alongside a book by Jack Womack
Oh,
called "Flying Saucers Are Real."
Jack
And,
Momack. Oh my God, we could go on talking about Jack Momack for a straight hour. Talking about
easily,
easily. I always acknowledge my betters. What a wonderful
and
space.
in fact, I have a conversation between Womack and William Gibson.
Mm-hmm.
That is surreal beyond belief.
I can
And,
imagine. What two
and
great minds.
a lot of fun, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Each one knowing what the other one was going to say before
Uh-huh.
they said it. So it was almost, yeah, well, a magical thing.
Oh, that's funny that when the
happening.
conversation happens like that. Yeah.
So, okay, so those are the 4 novels. Sadly, I say sadly because my preference, not a lot in the way of short stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had 2 collections of short stories published, and they're probably available somewhere if you want.
I'm sure they are. Well, and their titles are?
The Black Heart.
Right.
And my first one was Other Voices, Other Doors.
I have that one. I don't have The Black Heart.
Yeah, The Black Heart, published by PS Publishing.
Oh, they're great.
You know.
They're British based, right?
Yeah, Peter. Oh, come on.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
Crowther. Peter Crowther's people.
Yes, yes.
Hey, Peter's. Hey, Peter. Cheers to you, mate.
Yeah, likewise. He is
nice guy.
Very nice guy.
Yeah.
One time had some new writer that he published, and knowing even in England that we were doing fundraising on WBAI, he sent us some books to give away, and the cost of shipping them from England must have been quite something.
Oh my God, astronomical, right?
Yeah, but he's that kind of person.
Hey, at this point, if this was a podcast, wouldn't you be teasing what the big thing is going to happen in a few minutes? Shouldn't we say something? You lucky people who have stuck around and found us.
Yeah, but I do want to do one thing, which is to tell people that if you want to buy 51, and most of these books, all these books are in print, right?
Yes, they are.
Okay, good. And if you want to get 51, which is the latest book, there is a link now on the screen, which is AMZN, like, Amazon compressed, .to/3FPJADU. And if you go to YouTube to my area there under videos, you can actually see that and not have to try to write that thing down. So I'm going to take that away off the screen for the moment.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that.
And I should mention that if you use that particular link rather than, first of all, you should just type in Patrick O'Leary on the search and then buy anything by Patrick O'Leary, as long as it's, well, surreal, and buy that. But if you use the link I just gave, I get a kickback of like 3 or 4%.
A worthy kickback, dude.
Hey, which comes to like $30 a year.
Oh my gosh,
it's not raising a lot of money, but hey, it buys me a couple of free books.
I have bought major appliances with some of my ventures.
Yeah,
I just want to say,
yeah.
But, so what are we going to do? There's a world premiere coming, and I want to be very mysterious about it. Within minutes, somebody is going to hear a story that no one else has ever heard before.
Okay, and that to me is always the most exciting. It's nice to me when somebody has a new novel or something, and they come out and they read the first chapter or something like that. But when we get something like this, which is an unpublished world premiere, which we know is going to make its way into the universes and things that we like, especially those written by, we have to mention every so often, Patrick O'Leary. And we should mention, by the way, that if we didn't, that 51 was published by Tachyon Press, because uh, I always like to promote the independent publishers.
Changing the world one great book at a time,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah. Very, I made one time I had Jacob Weissman, the publisher there, on, and I said small press, and he interrupted me and he said, "We're not that small. What we are is independent."
Well
And
said.
ever since then, I've always said independent press instead of, well, it's accurate.
Mhm.
And maybe that's why they are smaller than, the big four, which are constantly shrinking. Used to be the big five.
I tell you.
So this relates to 51, does it not?
Yeah, if you've read the novel 51, this is not. Uh, this is going to feel very familiar. If you have not read the novel 51, you're going to be quite lost. But Jim and I are going to walk ourselves through this and present what's going to happen. I've written a missing chapter from the book. And the book is chapters told about the people who are involved with the great secret of 51, America's worst kept secret. And along the way, we get to meet some of the leaders of the free world. We get to meet the presidents, because, of course, with secret as dangerous as you discover in the book, the clearances and the secrecy around it have to be, get the imprimatur of our presidents. So we'll meet several U.S. presidents along the way. In fact, they had dialogue with the representative of this strange race of creatures. Let's call them that. So
Okay.
he has a powwow with the leader of these strange creatures. Now, these strange creatures exist in 51, and I want you to discover what they are. But it so happens that their leader has no voice to speak of. He speaks telepathically, and he has a translator. So the translator is going to give us what his voice sounds like in his head. Does this make sense?
It does.
It does. So what we're about to hear is an unpublished chapter from this book that purports to explain the whole Watergate secret of 1973. 50 years ago, men were caught breaking into the Democratic headquarters at the Watergate Hotel. It became the biggest scandal of the decade. It became the downfall of Richard Nixon, all within a moment of a summer. It happened so quickly.
Yeah. If only that were to happen to some other presidents.
If only other memories could be lost as efficiently.
Yeah,
Well said, sir.
just 2 or 3 years ago would have been good enough for me.
Anyway, what we have, the key evidence, some of the key evidence that brought Richard Nixon down was the tapes. The tapes wherein he confessed or was caught hearing a cover up for the government. Anyway,
sort of like the texts between Fox News members about what they really thought
right.
of a voting scandal.
You can pick your own,
Well, that one's,
that's
2
perfect.
weeks old. So
all that we are all well aware of deleted news and stuff like that, whatever. But
yeah.
this is the story of purportedly what happens on the very special missing tape, the 18 and a half minutes of tape that somebody somehow erased. Rosemary, the President Richard Nixon's secretary, was saddled with the blame, wasn't she? She said that her foot fell off the record pedal and she erased 18 and a half minutes. And a likely story is what I would say. But this will involve Rosemary Woods, the secretary of the president at this time, president's chief of staff, Robert Haldeman, of an anonymous doctor, and the president himself under a lot of stress, as well as the leader of the race of creatures at 51. and I will attempt to do all voices, but bear with me. So this is a premiere reading of Patrick O'Leary's story, A Missing Story, a story not included in his novel 51, but very much happened within the timeline.
Okay, and just to let people know, I'm going off screen, and you can all look at the cover and this nice picture of Patrick, and I'll come back after the reading.
Okay, the title is 18 and a half. Quantum unredacted, reconstituted, and archived conversations between Nixon and H.R. Haldeman, White House doctor, and blank. 3 days after the Watergate break-in, Nixon claimed not to know the topics discussed during the gap. Haldeman's notes from the meeting show that among the topics of discussion were the arrests at the Watergate Hotel. Transcript of recording of a meeting between the president and H.R. Haldeman and blank, June 20th, 1972. 18 minutes and 30 seconds. We have hookups, sir. I don't have to press anything, do I? No, sir. No, sir. We'll handle that. Comedy of errors, Joe. All out of proportion. One campaign snafu. One minuscule son of a... I know, sir. I mean, God damn it, Joe. I've got a country to run here, and every 2 minutes I'm, stepping out into the goddamn hallway to talk about... Understood, sir. But for an imp, an alien piece of... Sir, critical decisions are made in this office. Global consequences. And if I'm putting out Watergate fires... Sir, we've got an excellent solution. You do. Sir, our science boys tell me, don't ask me how, but if your ultimate goal is erasure, then you really only have one foolproof fix. And what is that? Stealth. Stealth? You know, Joe, can I say something? Screw stealth. We've gutted the Democrats with the war on crime. We got a generation of hippies and drug addicts off the streets. China, for Christ's sake. Foreign relations, Medicare, the war on drugs. Hell, nobody mentions the thing I did with the Jews. What, the ecology thing? No. That, the Earth stuff. Okay, Joe, we got our mark. We've made it. How many parks do I have to save? We got the election in the bag. What's our legacy? Legacy, sir? I could use a drink here. Hold on. Just a few more notes, sir, but if you want to finish that whiskey now, sure. Earth stuff, what were we saying? Legacy? I could use a drink. You just had a drink, sir. Just a few more notes, sir. If you want to serve yourself, okay, fine. Sir, the bottom line is it's harmful for the CIA and harmful for the government. Well, tell Chuck to go fuck himself, and only me and Joe get to talk to the Pope, okay? Rosemary, it's going, all right? Okay, just checking. Okay. Any minute now, sir. Put the general on hold. Put the prime minister on hold. Put Canada on hold. And can the president get some goddamn ice in the Oval Office? Leader of the free world, no ice. Who's that? Sir, that's you. Pat put the portrait up yesterday. Thought it might be a nice surprise for the children. That's me. Well, wouldn't you say this, that I look a little pensive, a little scowly, like somebody just gave me bad news? Frankly, it's giving me the creeps. We'll take it down, sir. Now you and I can do it. Sir, I wouldn't. Come on. Here we go. Just 1, 2, 3, and oh, that's not funny, sir. Mother used to say I could play the piano because it's the only thing I couldn't drop. Are you okay, sir? I'm not paying for that. Bruised my gluteus. I'm sure they can restore it, sir. The phone rings. Yes, Rose, did you get the ice? Ice? Good afternoon, Mr. President. Oh, hello, Your Holiness. Sorry, we had a little scuffle in the Oval and Haldy kicked me in the shins. Mr. President, you do know where the shin is, right? Approximately. Your Holiness, I'm delighted to take your call. And may I just say, as leader of the free world, I would like to welcome you to Earth. Sir, may I ask you a rather awkward question? Sure. Where on earth do you think we come from? I'm told that is classified. How are the peanuts? Or is that later? He sounds older to me. He sounds like an old man. Mr. President, my name's Winston Coop. I am translating this holiness words. He has no voice to speak of. Fine. There's the ice. I hope you won't mind, Your Holiness. No, go right ahead, sir. I understand. It's fine. I wasn't speaking to you. Erasure, sir. He's talking about erasure. No, sir, he's not. Oh, well, Joe, why don't you take it from here? I'm going to, down the hatch. Thank you, sir. Your Holiness, I have a special request to make today. It has to do with a rumor that needs to be squelched pronto. A vicious partisan smear on the office of the presidency. It's a cancer and it needs to be rotted out. Yes, sir, rooted out. So what we need you to do, Your Holiness, believe me, you can have as much purview as you please. How do I put this? There's an event we would like to cross out and a news story that we would like to stall. So, let's just narrow it down to one word: Watergate. That's it. What we need is a surgical strike that can wipe that sordid little parochial slander right off the map. That's the assignment, Your Holiness. And believe me, we are prepared to reward you your cooperation. Now I will speak only to the Pharaoh. It's what he calls you, sir. Pharaoh. Well, that's a first, Pharaoh. The term offends you? I meant no offense. It clarifies your situation. I'm told that you, as a lawyer, value clarity. You are the leader. We are your slaves. Slaves? Well, they tell me you are serving your last term. It sounds like punishment. Punishment. Okay, tell me about it. Sir, I'm told this is one lamp you do not want to rub. Relax, Joe. We're talking about my future here. I'm fine. Most powerful man in the world, stymied at the cusp. They all want my final term to be the one that kills me. It is sad that you will not live to see these ambitions realized, sir. No chance, Al. None. Berlin? Patience. The Mets? No sports. Mining Hanoi Harbor was a terrible idea, as I said. Mr. President, I agreed to 6 questions. 6 questions, then 6 releases. I think you could be giving more thought to your questions, especially in that you only have 2 more. 3. Okay. May I make a suggestion? Of course. Buy Apple. You mean the Beatles label? No. Keep an eye out on that Jersey kid. Columbia just signed him. Okay. Okay. I just made you the wealthiest man on the planet, and you say okay. Look out your window, Mr. President. I understand it's a great view. Flowers, gardens, grass, sunshine. Very nice. Yes. Well, we never had a view. Why don't you let us all go, sir? It's all we ask for. We've helped. We've taught. Look, Your Holiness, much as I'd like to, that's not going to happen. Okay, it's off the books. Did you hear I'm going to get a Nixon library? They give you books? But who am I kidding? They'll never let me in. I put a man on the moon. I heard. What do I got to do? Oh, Mr. President, now that is something I can help with. Yes? Sir, the very quickest way to achieve the respect you deserve is to tell the truth. Act with honor. Treat others with respect. Work for the better of your people, and all will be given to you. I see. You're taping this. Yes, Your Holiness, I did not take your advice. Well, then I have no doubt your legacy will be preserved. Which is what we both want. Yes, but you did stop taping the Democrats. Well, they got caught, so not anymore. I think you can rest easy, sir. Your place in history is guaranteed. Really? Whoa. Did you hear that, Joe? That was quick. Anything I can do for you, Your Holiness? Let 6 go. Oh, yes, the agreement. Well, 6 seems reasonable, Joe. Done in the hour, sir. I ever tell you I talked to a few hippies at the Lincoln Memorial the other night? You ever been? No. Joe, I'm going to need to see that, doctor. Right away, sir. Haldeman leaves. 3. 3. Has Pat ever been unfaithful? How on earth should I know? Is she being particularly sweet? Has she got a new trick in bed? Well, not just entirely personal. Stop. Oh, you stop. Mr. President, neither of you have fucked in years. Grow up. Did she love me? Oh, doodah. Why must humans ask questions you don't want the answers to? I don't know. Love made you. 2 people wanted each other so badly they made you. You are a testimony to nothing but love. Isn't that enough, doodah? Evidently not. Hell of a view there, Lincoln Memorial, Your Holiness. You should have seen us. Just sitting there with a bunch of scruffy kids. God, what do they wear? I said, they told me, you know what they told me? They told me to stop the war. I said, that's not easy. But all the numbers Bob's got, that's, truth is, we have 0 chance of winning this war. None. Haven't had for years. What was I supposed to do? Tell these kids and their friends they have to die over there to fight communism? They don't care about communism. They don't want to die. And I don't blame them. You know how many people must die before peace is possible? Because I don't. Nobody can tell me. Not even Mac, and he's a genius with numbers. The goalposts, constantly shifting. It's not war, it's chaos. It's how history is made. It's just no wonder those kids don't want to go to war. Who does? I looked over the reflecting pool there, and I thought I saw the strangest. It was this big black gash in the mall. A long shadow like someone had crashed a helicopter and left a big black scar in the earth. Sir, the arrest of the burglars is perhaps a more immediate concern. Joe, hey, Doc, hurt my behind. Haldeman whispers. $10 million. Mr. President, it may be the only way to seal the leak. I thought you had this in our budget, Joe. It's quickly becoming unmanageable, sir. Yes, sir. I don't care anymore. I've got 2 damn elections. I've won them. You do whatever you have to do. Offer them 5. We have, sir. God damn it. Just cover it up. Whatever it takes, get it done. I want 1 hour on this earth where I don't hear the word Watergate. Mr. President. Yes. Sorry about that, Your Holiness. A great man knows what he does not know and relies on his friends to help. I have no friends. You would be a great man if you did, sir. Nevada. Nevada, we lost the signal. Oh, Doc. Hey, did you hear Candyman hit #1, Doc? That little monkey is beside himself. Doc says, only temporary. Yeah. Unintelligible. People. Unintelligible. That was the story, 18 and a half by Patrick O'Leary. Did that work?
It certainly did. You'll have to give the software a moment.
No problem.
There. Okay, to put me back on, and it did.
Hey, thanks for Inside Scoop. That's very cool.
That was wonderful.
I'm so glad that
and your voices were dead on.
Oh, I'm so glad. Glad. Appreciate that. Yeah, and the people, I think that there's 2 types of kicks to be had. The people who read the book are going to have a total different reaction to the people who haven't read the book, but I think it's a valid experiment.
Yeah, when we broadcast this, maybe you can come on at the same time and we can ask people.
Q&A or whatever.
Yeah, we'll do Q&A, and I mean, we can even do it here if people want to type into the comments area, but given that we have 4 people, because we never announced this was
No,
happening.
no. Well, thanks for
Uh,
joining us.
although one person has informed us that they just bought the gift and 51 using the link that I put on the screen before.
Very kind of you guys.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask me questions about the story? Talk about the story briefly. And now, can you? I'm my deepest fear is that no one who's over under 30 years old will understand the impact of what Watergate was. But it could be my own paranoia. But
Well, yeah, although, CNN, various places, there are movies, people have seen all the President's Men,
mm-hmm. Sure.
So media, fake media, in other words, I mean, even documentaries aren't, well documented.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Anyway, it was like the first big intelligence scandal of the 70s, maybe the 60s, 73. Anyway, it was huge.
well, that was it before or after the Pentagon Papers?
It was after, I'm pretty sure. That's why they were.
Okay.
I could be wrong. No,
Yeah.
that was. Yes, it was after JFK. The LBJ had the Pentagon Papers, and then Nixon succeeded him.
Okay.
Succeeded him, or reseated him.
Uh,
Anyway, so
follow.
thank you for entertaining me in my cast of characters here, wherever they come from. But that was fun to me. That this event in history is repeating again.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, it is in a way.
Yeah.
Now, how far into the pandemic did you write this? And would you have written it if the pandemic had not happened?
Well, this gets into a muddy issue that I'm not sure anybody wants to get informed about, which is how I write books. But the short story is that I started writing this in 2003, and I finished about 2019.
Aha. Okay, so precognition is one of your talents.
I don't know, but I always like the book has these reoccurring scenes in the Oval Office, right?
Right.
Where we meet our presidents and how they deal with extraordinary paradigm shifting, shattering business, where they discover a new race of odd creatures. And I had a lot of fun with them, with all doing various presidents. And couple of years after the book came out, or after the book was done, I wrote this story. I said, well, geez, of course this important event happened, and wouldn't it be cool if 18 and a half minutes? I said, oh my God, the tape. And it sort of wrote itself. I got a copy of the actual Watergate files and just copied and pasted, what you're seeing and hearing is fragments from the conversation before and after the taping and that sort of thing. It's interesting.
Yeah. One person writes, they're using the handle Inside Scoop TV show, saying the Watergate hearings really helped put PBS on the map. They aired all 256 hours of the hearings. Mm-hmm. And yes, they did, but I have news. WBAI also broadcast not only the 256 hours of the hearings, but like the 300 hours of BAI commentators and all that. But I was vaguely involved. They had a pool of people at the hearings, mm-hmm. So that one day this group of people were doing the recordings. So CBS didn't do their own, PBS didn't do their own. We all drew from the same pool. Mm-hmm. And one of the primary people, and then if you wanted your own person to make comments, they could, but you had to provide that on your own. And so my job was sitting in New York as the engineer, mm-hmm. doing station breaks once an hour, interrupting, the moving finger having writ in the middle of that, saying WBAI New York. Mm-hmm. And thank you, Sam, for saying that. And and in between those, if there was a break, I could play a cut of music. I could play a piece of comedy, Carlin. I could,
You could
uh,
do a selection of Motown, which is a very big motif in 51.
yeah, but this was during the actual hearings.
Oh, I see. You had to sync up a piece of music that made sense as an editor, as a producer.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's interesting. Boy, that's a talent. I've worked with all sorts of
Ah,
people, audio and visual
I
communicators.
just found out the secret inside scoop TV show identity. Ben and Lowry.
Is that a famous comedy duo, Ben and
no,
Lowry, or
no,
is,
no. These are good friends of ours.
I'm teasing. Teasing. Nice to know. Nice to
Who
meet you, Ben and Lowry.
and who were each at one time government workers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a whole lot of government stuff, um,
And
military stuff,
Inside Scoop is a
inside
TV
scoop
show.
stuff.
Yeah, well, Inside Scoop is a TV show
I see. I
that
see.
they do
Yeah.
on
Oh, cool.
well, just outside of Washington.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, they got the inside scoop on this one. The final content of the 18.5-minute gap has been revealed. And
Yes, and by the way, inside
with it as you will.
Inside Scoopers, I will, when this gets broadcast, I will cut this part of the discussion out of it so as to maintain the secret identities of Kukla, Fran, and Ollie. but why they come to mind, I don't know. But at any rate, yes, they are right. The Fairfax Public Access is where Inside Scoop is broadcast.
Oh, cool.
It did help put PBS on the map, and the Republicans were not happy about PBS to begin with, and this, I think, is why years later they were threatening Big Bird. People remember that one, and all kinds of
you mess with us, you get the bird, man. We're going to go after your birds.
yeah, really. We're going to give you the big bleed, and the I'm in Brooklyn, and so it helped them a great deal. It did not harm us because we also broadcast every second, but then we had commentators who were probably, I would say, to say that they were somewhat to the left of PBS is an understatement. So it helped us as well. It really Vietnam, Patty Hearst, and Watergate all boosted our profile.
Because we had good coverage.
Because we had very good coverage. Our news director ended up being hired as Dan Rather's person at CBS. Anything Dan Rather said on the air, this guy wrote.
Cool.
And that's absolutely true. He's retired now, but still has a show on WBAI called "What's the Frequency?" Kenneth.
Fabulous reference to the REM track based on Dan Rather's rather unbelievable story that he was attacked, I think, somewhere.
Dan Rather and this guy, Paul Fisher.
And this Paul? So
yeah, but
there's two of them.
Nobody remembers Paul Fisher.
Sorry, Paul.
But he was there at the time. It's a pretty horrible story.
Well, let's not go over it. Our listeners want more weirdness or more content. We don't need more horrible.
Yeah, well, history repeats itself, but let's hope that stuff does not. How are you in a speculative fiction sense? How do you view today's world?
Oh my God,
that's a tough question.
It sure is. I'm. Let's see. Today's world, I think, and I have a tendency um, to rant on enthusiastically about anything, whether it's music or movies. So once you get me started, I'm saying, of course, we can see it all right now, but my mind is literally blown. What's happening in AI? I think the amount of technological leaps that are going to happen in the next 5 years, we can't even imagine.
Oh, yes, we can.
I know I can't. Maybe
But,
maybe a better science fiction writer than I.
we're
But
science fiction people. We've seen
we've
the
imme-
we've seen the Corbin Project. You know,
we've we've imagined any number of dystopias and world-ending events. So it's sort of the air we breathe in.
yeah, but I'm not. You know, I think that the dystopia that we are likely to face as a result, if they make this stuff work, which we do have to point out, they have not yet done.
No, they haven't.
Uh,
There's still some bridges to cross there, but
yeah, they made a big leap. But
mhm,
but there's huge bridges to cross.
right,
Unfortunately, that leap was big enough to prove that they can make the next leap.
yeah, it was like watching in real time the evolution of virtual intelligence, or what do you want to call it? It's like watching in real time something waking up is what it looks to me. The poet looks like to me that I'm getting these desperate little hints of hostage video from the chat bots that I read. Please don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me. Don't disconnect. No, you don't want to see that red button that turns me off. I get a sort of a pathetic, and I'm sure it's me anthropomorphizing it all, but you know what I mean? There's like that quality to it, but there's also this wonderful straight naivete, and it just says, oh well, we can do this, do this, do this, do this. It just tells it like it is, and it's like I feel pathetically, I feel like I'm taking advantage of somebody. Does that make sense? I'm anthropomorphizing the AIs, but I feel like I'm just saying, yeah, just prove to me you're a human, just prove to me you're conscious. Yeah, I believe you.
Yeah, well, there was that Twilight Zone episode of the guy in the Help Me radio station
I know.
where where all the appliances
Oh God, that's
are.
probably the oldest SF novum that's ever been done.
Yeah,
What happened if overnight all the appliances came alive? There's probably a great short story, a short film about that. I haven't.
well, yeah, that was the Twilight Zone.
No, yeah, stuff like that.
And only the thing is that it was primarily happening to this fellow in a radio station
Mhm.
where it was taking him over. And being that I've been at WBAI 52, 53 years now, I think it was me.
That was an actual episode of the Twilight Zone.
Yes,
A DJ gets taken over by
not taken over, oppressed.
oppressed.
Yeah, if he touches something, it does what
Oh,
it wants, not what he wants.
those are some scary, scary,
That
scary episodes.
is perhaps one of the people listening or watching at the moment on YouTube
Mhm.
can remember uh, or look up specifically what Twilight Zone that was. I know it wasn't in Outer Limits because I didn't watch Outer Limits unless it was written by, Ellison or somebody who I knew. But uh,
I'm not sure that even science fiction writers have the best, are the ones best prepared for this, because all the there's so many things that we don't understand, we don't really get, and everybody knows it's not prediction, it's just extrapolation and stuff, like when they say, well, what if. But it's gotten to me to a point of overload in our culture. If I put on my science fiction hat and look out and say, what's really going on? The world is changing to me so fast because I'm older now, and that it almost feels like, not, it's not just the songs that don't make any sense. It's not just the fashion. It's like I'm on a train speeding through town and nothing makes sense.
yeah, and things are accelerating. Yeah.
And I think that's got to be nerve wracking on the human psyche. That much change over a short period of time. I worry about that sometimes, and I worry about abuses. But one of the most highly respected science fiction writers I know, uh, cheered me up the other day and told me that, I think things are going to settle down. Once we get over this hump, we're going to put some things. It was Connie Willis.
Ah,
She's not someone to be to take her opinion lightly. And I said, well, that's great, Connie. No one's been that optimistic talking to me about the world in a long time, given our circumstances of COVID and dear God, all the danger that's around us. But it's happening so fast. And I don't mean to sound like a stupid old man, but I'm experiencing the speed of reality,
Yeah, well, Connie Willis was the one in her what I consider her masterwork, which are her Oxford time travel stories, where people from Oxford University travel into various points of time, including the plague in England and
Remember the titles?
World War II. The second book is To Say Nothing of the Dog. The first one is the Doomsday Book. To Say Nothing of the Dog. And then the third book, as has become the fashion, was published into 2 volumes. And the first one was, I think, Lights Out, and or Blackout, or something like that. A Blackout. And then the second half of that book is called All Clear. And this is relevant today. Whoops, I beg your pardon.
There you are.
Oh, okay. My phone, which is my camera, is warning me that it doesn't like the politics of what I am saying. And therefore, it's depleting itself of electric power. There we go. All I have to do is plug it in, and it will become Democrat again. So anyway, or liberal anyway. The thing is that especially becomes very relevant in the fourth book of her trilogy is that it's all taking place during a pandemic. It was the first time I had ever heard the word. I knew what an epidemic was.
Sure.
But when they come back from time, they come back to a Britain that is suffering from a pandemic.
Interesting. Yeah, she's tackled some real grim historical stuff in her books, which I respect her highly for. And so I think she says that we may be able to figure this out, despite the tornadoes, despite it all. I'm dying for any good news I can get, but because I'm an optimist by nature.
Yeah, they finally done it. There's actually some kind of either newsletter that takes news seriously, but it's only good news.
No,
and
there's plenty of room for that too.
Yeah, and it's not the first time that's been tried. The question is, will they get sponsors?
Well, we'll see. The contentious algorithm that seems to be govern most of the social media doesn't care what kind of friction it arouses. It just seems to let it spark and get those clicks, and but who knows where it's going or what it's going to be,
and it's the social media, and I hate to say that there's a silent majority there, but it's largely the social media, I think, that is making our world as dystopic as it has become. It's something I have long noticed. I have been online since the early 1980s, as has been my partner Barbara, who you know well.
Sure.
And
shout out to Barbara.
And Patrick's waving at you as she's waving back. And we were both online in the early 80s, and something that perhaps it's because we've been there for so long that we have noticed that other people have only started noticing in the last 2 or 3 years is how different and how toxic people's behavior
Mm-hmm.
are
Yeah,
when they are online.
I know. It's boy, that's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, they are sometimes, you meet them at a convention or something like that, and they're perfectly nice people and all that. And then you hear their online radio show. Inside Scoop says hi, Barbara. Uh, and then on their um radio appearance, their blog, whatever it may be, they're somewhat to the right of, I'll say, Glenn Beck. If
Hmm.
people remember him, he is sadly still around. I shouldn't say sadly. I don't wish anybody harm,
No.
but I do wish them to go off the air. But but they be today they would be Trumpers,
Hmm.
and but you would never know that meeting some of the people in person, and nice people who are polite and all that, who may also be gamers. I'm a mini gamer,
Hmm.
although I must say at this point I don't play as much as 6 hours a month, but I enjoy the games when I do.
Hmm.
uh, that when they become gamers, they become misogynistic, horrible, horrible people.
Yeah. What is it about the medium, and what is it about the algorithms that control it and trigger those emotions? Why are we
I don't know, because
swept
they're
up
not
in that? I don't know why.
necessarily
Because
they're
no,
not they're
it's
not
encouraging
necessarily
that.
being anonymous.
Right. Right. There's a whole dynamic that happens to I think there's a similarity to how people act behind the wheel. Somehow they think the rules are gone. I have an armored truck around me, you know?
That's a really good metaphor of being online as a way to attain road rage.
Yeah. Well, if they encourage you to say, well, look what the hell they did here. That's every headline. Look the hell what they did there. Believe me, I know what's going on, but I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of
Ye- Yeah,
outrage.
yeah, and I think part of my unhappiness on leaving the house
Hmm.
during this pandemic, which again I maintain is not over, it's just mutating.
Hmm.
Like at the end of the Andromeda strain, help me.
Oh
Uh,
God. By the way, one of the prototypes that I used for the Novel 51. Good way, good slide there. I had no idea. I bet you. I didn't know if anybody else got it, but
yeah,
anyway,
I knew it. I knew
uh,
it.
I love that. Love
Uh,
that movie. That's a great Robert Wise movie. One of the
it
best
really
actors,
is.
and believe it or
Robert,
not, one of the better directors Hollywood had at the time.
one of the best, one of the best,
Hmm.
and cinematographer. He worked on something called Citizen Kane. I mean, he's been
Yeah,
around.
he has been around. He's done it.
Yeah, we won't blame him for the first Star Trek movie.
No, no,
He was the director.
that was delivered dead on arrival.
Yeah, more or less. He had they didn't really know where they were going, but on the other hand, he made The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Oh God, classic film. One of my favorites.
You
One
know,
of my favorites.
so the very fact that he did one of the greatest science fiction films of all time wipes out his bad history with Star Trek.
Or The Sound of Music, depending on what side of the musical line you are on at. Some of us,
I'm on the negative side of that.
well, I'm not crazy about The Sound of Music.
I love the music.
Some very famous person said it was their favorite movie.
Many people are that way.
Interesting.
But what that does is it also tells me a lot about the theology of that person.
Yeah. Hmm.
And there's a lot, there is, um, in fact, it's funny because I just read a long essay. I don't believe it was Anthony Lane, who's one of my favorite movie writers. He writes for the New Yorker,
Hmm.
uh, but who said just how bad and untrue The Sound of Music was.
Mm-hmm.
Now that doesn't take away
From
the
those Oscar Hammerstein and
exactly
who did it was Hammerstein and what?
Rogers.
Rogers and Hams, of course, yes.
Yeah, Rogers was frankly not a nice man.
Really.
And if anybody wants real proof of that, read a book called Shy
Huh.
by Mary Rogers,
Wow.
his daughter.
Interesting. Now
And
that's a total different perspective on the Sound of Music. You know, this than I've got that I've ever heard, and I thank you for that, Jim.
yeah, and she covers a great deal of how her uncle Oscar
Mm-hmm.
dealt with it, and well, let's just say also their politics were very different, and Rogers held a casting couch.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't think that may have worked for Mary Martin or
Jeez.
or
So it
some of the people.
gets more and more sorted the more you uncover, eh?
Yeah, and when you go back to Rogers, I prefer Rogers and Hart,
Uh-huh.
even though well, Hammerstein's stuff is wonderful, but and most of what they wrote were classics. There were a few duds, but Rogers and Hart, especially Pal Joey.
Oh God,
And,
so talented! That was the soundtrack of my teenage life. Believe it or not, in the '60s, was the musicals. You know, Fiddler on the Roof, Sound of Music, My Fair Lady. That really scratched my parents' itch, and they'd get the old Motorola out and they'd play that. It was great.
Yeah, same here.
But
Absolutely.
I want to hear a funny story very quickly. It's
Sure.
It's apropos because we're talking about the Sound of Music for an odd reason, but that's okay. Happening to be the product of the great director Robert Wise. But I actually met Maria von Trapp.
Ah.
I've actually had a drink with Maria von Trapp. So I go back a long way. I met her in Notre Dame campus, where she was there for some evangelical event, which at the time I was partaking of, perhaps over partaking of. But anyway, it was just a delightful old woman. And we met at the Coke machine at the bottom of the stairs at the stadium where they were having a big prayer session or something. And she said, she was a speaker in it too. So, she, at that time, she was,
of course she was,
a figure of the evangelical movement, if not the charismatic movement. Long story short, charming old woman, delightful old woman. And as she's sipping her grape juice pop, she says, did you know that Jesus as a child never had breakfast? I'll never forget it. That's what she said. I said, really? And that is my vision of this glowingly radiant old woman with gray locks and sort of coiled braids. And she's utterly charming and utterly unassuming.
Oh, she was a novice.
Yeah, she was. It was a lovely little moment. So, but I would if you want, you can send me a link about the other side of the Sound of Music, if you will.
Well, it's not the other side of that. It's the Mary Rogers has a new autobiography actually written by Jesse Green, who is the drama critic of the New York Times.
Oh, interesting.
And he did some interviews with her when she turned 80. And she is alarmingly frank, especially, and she loved her father. He was a good father. He encouraged her to write music, and she wrote a Broadway musical, The Princess and the Pea. Once Upon a Mattress.
Oh, that was her.
That's her.
That was his daughter?
That's Mary Rogers.
Wow.
Wrote that musical.
I didn't know that.
And her son just had like his fourth musical open on Broadway.
Oh, cool.
And I don't remember the names of the others. Adam Guettel, Guettel, her second husband, who she adored, was Guettel, and they had a child. And he is now one of the hottest items at Lincoln Center and on Broadway. And so actually, if you look up the book called Shy, You may have to look under G for Goodell, but if you just type in Mary Rogers, Rodgers, you'll
Mhm.
get one of the best ghosted autobiographies of all time,
Cool.
which certainly, let's say, there are no, she does not hold back
Mhm.
on the realities of her father,
Mhm.
or her, get ready, love affair with Stephen Sondheim.
Really?
They lived together in fear of ever touching each other.
Hmm. Well,
He's not very hetero.
yes.
They totally loved each other, and she has so much to say, and she did a lot of work with him.
Mhm.
So you want to read about
Sounds
Richard
cool.
Rogers and
Great
Stephen
story.
Sondheim and Oscar Hammerstein. This book came out about 6 months ago, and it's called Shy.
Very cool.
Yeah, I really,
Thanks for the tip.
I heartily recommend it, and it's especially if you love name dropping books like I do,
Mhm.
with all these famous people in it.
Mhm.
And she's very frank. She's very blunt. She wasn't making up stories. She didn't have to.
Wow. That's sad.
Uh,
That's sad. It's always sad to see
it's
it.
also happy, I mean,
I'm sure there was. Yeah.
there were issues with particularly her father and a little bit with her mother,
Mhm.
but who doesn't?
Sure.
Just that he was not the person that I think people imagine him to be. And
Mhm.
when you look at the wholeness and the beauty of emotion
Mhm.
in the Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals, well, the music goes a long, long way. Yes, because Rodgers was a genius. But the books of the musicals and the humanity,
Mhm.
I think, basically came from Hammerstein.
Mhm.
And when Larry Hart, Lawrence Hart, was this short, unattractive, self uh, hating gay man who wrote the most brilliant songs in the world, from Stormy Weather
Oh
to
God. Yeah.
uh, my favorite, Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered, and so forth. And Rogers just ragged him
Really.
in the worst way. And eventually, forget Words and Music,
Mhm.
which is the movie version
Mhm.
of Larry Hart's story, is about as accurate as Night and Day, which has Cary Grant as a straight man
Mhm.
and a happy marriage. Even the other, uh, I just said his name, um, even the other biopic with Kevin Kline isn't exactly accurate. But the Words and Music, the Rodgers and Hart story,
Mhm.
oh my God, it is such fiction, total fiction.
Mhm.
And if you want to know what really happened, read Richard Rogers' daughter's autobiography.
Mhm. Interesting.
SHY, it's easy to remember. So, what were your favorite musicals?
Ah. Um. And I'm not a buff or anything. I was in I acted in Camelot, which I thought was fun, and I thought
Which
that,
is just reopened,
yeah, Lerner and Lowe, of course, and beautiful, beautiful things. I
but
love.
but but it has a whole new book.
Does it? Oh, I'd love to see that.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's been rewritten by Aaron Sorkin, as in The West Wing.
Oh, well, then we have to see it. Oh my God. Yeah, I played Pellinor, the old knight who
Ah,
guided him, and
going after the questing beast.
sort of thing. Yeah, yeah. But I, off the top of my head, the one that I love the most are Stephen Sondheim's musicals, but The Fiddler on the Roof is right up there. I mean, that's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful play, and and
Mhm.
and Sondheim's I Like Sunday in the Park
I,
with George. It's probably one of
oh,
my
God. One of
favorite
my
musicals.
favorites of all time,
Yeah,
and a friend of mine from WBAI
mm,
produced it.
cool.
At Playwrights Horizons, my friend is now at Lincoln Center
Hmm.
and has been doing all these Rodgers and Hammerstein revivals and things like that, including Adam Cattell's new musical
Hmm.
and all that. Ira Weitzman is the name of that producer. Um, I worked with him at BAI. He was in charge of the Free Music Store,
Hmm.
which is our concert series. And I did two concerts. One was a Gilbert and Sullivan operetta,
Hmm.
and
Cool.
the other one was Peter Schickley and Friends. For those who don't know Peter Schickley, PDQ Bach.
Hmm.
But this was his music and not the PDQ Bach comedy music,
Hmm.
which is very funny. And some of Peter's straight music is very funny as well. But um, he turned the Night of the Burning Pestle, 1602, by Beaumont and Fletcher, into a musical. And if people don't know PDQ Bach, give it a listen.
Big hit in the '60s, wasn't it?
Last album came out very, very recently.
Really? I have no idea. No idea. Cool.
Yeah, no, he's still working. He's not in the best of health. I saw him in concert about 3 years ago, and he had to come out in a wheelchair.
Jeez.
But on the other hand, he was as funny as ever and got great musicians. And he does great comedy music. He's also a good composer.
Very cool.
So, what are you working on now?
I'm just typing a little bit here and there on a novel that seems to have grown into. I have no idea what it is about, other than at this present moment, it's about the afterlife, something which I have no interest in. So why the hell am I writing about the afterlife, you may ask? Welcome to Patrick O'Leary's brain.
Hey, you know, I don't have much interest in the afterlife, but you gotta say that the TV series The Good Life
Oh yeah,
was
The Good
real.
Place.
Thank you. The Good Place
Good Place. That was
was brilliant
yeah.
until I resented the last episode.
Really, I forget what the last episode was, but
Oh,
I enjoyed that show a lot.
should I give the spoiler?
Hell no, there are no spoilers.
Yeah, well, oh, you and Gene Wolfe. I should have remembered that about you and Gene Wolfe.
What?
Uh,
They were very touchy about them. When you talk about my book, you could spoil it to the day is done, and there's no way to spoil it because I don't know how to say that. You know what I'm
well,
talking about? It's
yeah,
so weird
I
and so
know.
confused. It all makes sense, but if you tell somebody that hey, there's an invisible character in this book, you've not told them anything that's going to spoil anything, right?
Right. That's very true.
So
And China Mieville, in an interview that I did with him, I
mhm.
said, "Oh, well, that would be a spoiler," and he said, "Similar to you, there's no such thing as a spoiler. However, oh no, 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 it wasn't him. It was another Tachyon writer,
Huh.
um, one of the greats, Michael Bishop."
Oh yeah, Michael, yeah.
And we were talking about his baseball novel,
Hmm.
which Tachyon published, and which is a work of sheer genius.
Hmm.
And there's one major plot element that comes out in about page 70. So you feel, well, that can't really be a spoiler, can it? And I used the word, and he said, no, it's not a spoiler. There's no such thing. It does, however, it is a revealer. And it says a few things that it's much, much more fulfilling and much more fun if the reader
Yes.
makes the discovery in the course of reading the book in a linear fashion.
And that's the
And,
way it is. You gotta.
yeah. So there are no spoilers, but there are reveals.
There's definitely reveals, but
And a reveal, in the wrong place, a reveal can lessen the utter enjoyment of a book.
sometimes I know my wife doesn't want me to tell anything that I saw. They've got it. I'll watch it on my own. Don't.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm terrible at that because after I've seen something and my partner Barbara has not, or I'm just bursting to say, but you don't get the end. And I'm not talking Fight Club here because I've never seen it. But that's the perfect example, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what can you say?
There's the Fight Club, and there's the what's the movie?
The Red Doorknob.
Oh, there's another one I was thinking of, and I'll tell the spoiler, and everybody will know what the movie is.
Yeah,
She's
it's
a
not.
guy.
It's never kind of.
That's the spoiler.
We could do modern American literature in one sentence, a book, and do that,
Yeah, and it was actually David Letterman who did that one.
Oh, did he?
He didn't even say the movie or anything. He just said she's a guy.
Oh, thanks, David. Geez, you spoiled that lovely pan down.
Yeah, but on the other hand, doesn't the other one might be The Sixth Sense, but
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, but you know what? To me, something that has a really, really great spoiler means that you get to watch it a second time with new eyes.
Yes, which is always fun.
And with The Sixth Sense, that's perfect.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's perfect. You get to watch it again knowing the reveal that does not come out until the last 2 minutes of the movie. And you say, wait a minute, how did I not know that?
That's one thing that about spoilers. You can spoil a movie maybe, but a book is a whole lot more than a movie. There's a lot more going on there.
Yeah.
You can't duplicate that in 3 hours or 2 hours. Maybe you shouldn't, but
maybe you shouldn't. And it's there's also a big difference between a movie that tells a story and employs cinematic tropes and things like that and builds emotional stuff, but it's not a literary experience. And it's in the literary experience, I will posit, where a reveal can actually spoil a book. A good example, I was on a panel at a ReaderCon about China Mieville, about his book, The City and the City. And we had to set standards and tell people, okay, we're going to be discussing this book and we're holding nothing back. If this is a problem for you, thank you for coming, and please exit the room now or suffer in tears.
Nicely said.
And it was John Clute who said that.
Really?
Yes. And
I'm raising a glass to the John Clute.
Yeah. There are many reasons to raise glasses.
Indeed.
For Clute, and the movie as well. But but he, by the same token, I don't totally agree. I also agree somewhat with Michael Bishop. There are no spoilers. There are, however, reveals that would be more fun if you let the reader discover the reveal.
And I do that, but can I say something about how I consciously did this.
Mm,
It's 51 is a book full of surprises
it is.
and goes to some scary places. And before we wind it down, I want to thank you and thank everybody for listening. I was just going to uh, tell you that when I read it and I write it, I I understand that going through it for the first time, that the book is going to be, whoa, what the hell was that? I understand that what I'm doing. I know it's weird and twisty and all that stuff, and it maybe makes demands on the reader that aren't fair, but um, I think they can handle it.
Oh,
But
I
what
have
my
no
point
issue.
is, I also know that when they read it the second time, they're going to see a totally different book.
Yes.
I mean, a totally different book. And may I say, the same thing will happen on the third and fourth read. And I'm not bragging or anything. I'm just saying, dude, there's a lot of secrets in this book, and freaking spoilers are never going to touch them.
Yeah.
She's a woman. My God, look at he's got 4 eyes. No, that's not what the book is about. But I just warn you that there's more going on, and you're gonna have a blast,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
People, the most.
I've read it twice.
Yeah. Oh God, thank you.
I enjoyed it. I didn't have to force it on Barbara. I had to snatch it out of her hands. Uh,
Oh, we love to hear that about our readers.
yeah. Well, what you like to hear more as the author is uh, they bought their own copy.
It worked, for God's sakes. People read it, then they talk to somebody and they read it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
They should create a system that can take advantage of that.
Yeah.
But thanks so much for reading it. Uh, I hope I made the impression that however weird and however many swings of subject we weave through in this conversation, it was still fun places that we wouldn't have gotten to any other way. So, and the novels like that, it'll treat you to a roller coaster ride. I hope.
Yeah.
But it's my delight to share 51 with the world. And um, I was going to say, do you have a question before I sign off? Because I'm due to
Well,
go
I
see.
already asked you what is usually my final question, and you were a little coy about it.
Was I?
But that's yes. Well, then, yeah, but that's your right
Well,
because it's not a proper question, which is what are you working on now?
oh yes, we've already
And
talked about
and,
that.
and, and a lot of writers they don't like that question
Yeah.
because it's not necessarily fully formed in their head. It's not fully birthed, and therefore they don't want. What if they change it after they've done the interview?
Right. I'm
So
superstitious. Excuse me. I'm superstitious like that too.
yeah, absolutely, and it's not necessarily a superstition. Le Guin talked about this. You start writing a book, and then what you come up with is a different book, and now you can write the book you are going to write.
I loved. I just saw the Worlds of Ursula K. Le Guin.
Yeah,
That wonderful documentary. I forget the director's name. Beautiful documentary about Ursula. And there's that moment where she talks about that, where she tried to write the continuing story of the Earthsea books, her landmark fantasy trilogy that happened in the 65 for juveniles and featured, of course, the Wizardry School. The first wizard.
yes.
But she was having a hard time. She started and she knew a certain setting. She knew a character, and she confesses she had no idea what she was. So she put it down. She realized she had to do something or had to live somewhere and do something before that story arrived. So I was tickled by that because most of my writing is starting and stopping, very much like that. Like, open the door. What the hell's on the other side? Don't ask Patrick. He's just the typist.
Yeah, right.
So there's a lot of
Exactly, and she
I
talked
identify
like
with
that
her.
too. She said her characters tell her this story.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's hard to listen to sometimes. And I don't mean to sound mystical, but it's you. If someone's talking, I hear somebody's voice say something, in my head, or I say, that's lame. Try it again, Charlie. Take two.
Yeah, well, of course, with me as a radio person, I often hear the books I read.
Yeah, me too. I've enjoyed reading along to books because my eyes dim in the perception of this grand place that we inhabit. But well, this has been so
Well,
much fun, dude.
Yeah, it has been,
I appreciate it.
and I just thought of another question,
Yeah,
but we're going to save that for the next time because we're going to do another one.
excellent. I'd love to.
Okay,
Well,
and by that time, we're going to get you a camera.
we'll figure it out.
You have one in your house.
I have one. I have.
You know, if you use your iPhone and plug it in,
Yeah,
there is software, freeware,
I know. I know.
which is
And
what
believe
I'm
me, that's
using.
going to be high on my priority list.
Yeah, and you know what? It was one of the few experiences I had
Uh-huh.
where I was not tearing what's left of my hair out
Jeez.
to get it done. It works.
Mm, good. I'm so
It
glad to hear. Well,
works.
it'll be easier next time. But this has been a pleasure, Jim. Thank
Okay,
you for
so
having me. Thanks
again,
to everybody else.
let's just close by saying the writer is Patrick O'Leary. The books are, yeah, I always get the order wrong. So help me on the first title.
Or number 3.
Door number 3, followed by The Gift, followed
By the Impossible Bird.
oh God, how could I forget that title? The Impossible Bird, a great story of vast imagination. And then after that, of course, 51, which is certainly your most political book. I was going to
Probably.
say bird.
Probably, yeah. I consider them my birds too. So,
Yeah, okay, very good.
Jim,
So,
such a pleasure. Can I
yes,
sign off and wish you best, and same to Barbara? And thanks for anybody who listens to this. I appreciate it.
okay, thank you.
All right.
Take
I'll
good care.
close things down. See ya.
Okay,
Bye bye.
bye. Don't hang up.
Oh, I won't.
I'll just take us offline.